Elvenking has finally brought that trilogy to a close, so it begs the question, was it worth the wait? Today I'm talking about Reader of the Runes, Luna, the third part in the trilogy, which was just released on April 11th, 2025. But before I begin, let me give you a little background on the band. Elvenking is an Italian folk and power metal band who have a unique blend of heavy metal, folk, pagan influences. The band was founded in 1997 and they became one of the leading acts in Europe's metal scene. They released their debut album called Heathen Real in 2001. That was the start of their collaboration with AFM Records. Over the years, the band's sound evolved significantly and they incorporated more folk elements into their music. Some of the most popular albums include The Winter Wake from 2006, The Scythe from 2007, and The Pagan Manifesto from 2014. But in 2019, they started a trilogy called Reader of the Runes. First album is called Reader of the Runes Divination. It was a concept album in 3 parts. Second part came out in 2023 called Reader of the Runes Rapture. And the third part just came out, Reader of the Runes Luna, which is the subject matter of today's video. This band has a pretty unique style because they blend folk power metal and pagan metal, but can also be aggressive at times. Their influences range from bands like Blind Guardian, In Flames, and even Cradle of Filth. So you can see the background is pretty diverse. They also have 6 people in the band, including 1 vocalist, 2 guitarists, a bass player, a drummer, and a violinist. Let me give you some background on the Reader of the Runes trilogy. First album was released in 2019, Divination. This album introduces you to the mystical world of runes and magic. There are 8 characters in the story, and each of them is connected to the Rune Reader, who is the central figure that uses the ancient runes to uncover secrets and guide destinies. The album explores themes of prophecy, fate, hidden truths, and the music features medieval folk atmosphere that complements the storytelling. Then in 2023, they released Rapture. Here's where the story takes a darker turn. There are more themes of despair, betrayal, and chaos. The Rune Reader's influence grows as secrets unravel, and this leads to many conflicts amongst the characters. This album explores the consequences of their actions and the threats looming over them. As for the music, it blends heavier musical elements with folk melodies, and it's a reflection of the tension and tragedy in the story. Now, the third installment is Luna. This is the final chapter, and it brings everything to a conclusion. In this chapter, all the mysteries are revealed. They reveal the true identity of the Rune Reader and how they connect the characters who were introduced in the first album, Divination. The story culminates in this epic confrontation, and that's pretty much all I'll tell you. I don't want to ruin the story, no pun intended. But with that being said, I want to talk more about the new album, Luna, and I want to be focusing more on the music. So let me talk about the album. There are only 10 tracks. It's 54 minutes long, so it's a decent length for this type of album. The album opens with a song called Season of the Owl, and the one thing I noticed was the song shifted gears a few times throughout its 5-minute runtime. For example, at first it sounded like a typical power metal song with the fast-paced drum beats. Then there were more melodic sections. There was a part in the middle where it felt like the tone was much darker. But there are also some happier moments where they play these medieval-sounding folk melodies and other parts of the song, some more like heavy metal. So I enjoyed this first track. I feel like they're trying to mix a lot of different things, but it sounded like one cohesive song. Real quick, if you want to join this channel for only 99 cents, you get early access to all my videos, and $2.99. Not only you get early access, you can request album reviews. There's a join button below or a link in the video description. The next song was called Luna. This one was a little more straightforward. It didn't have all the changes I heard in the first song, but it was still a very concise and catchy power metal style song with fast drum beats. There were lots of melodies and a guitar and an overall catchy sound. It was also the shortest song at only 3 minutes, so it was a little different from the first track. It had a nice balance of the guitars and keyboards, and I liked the song. After this was a song called Grande Epoque. This is the band leaning into their folk metal style. Had those very distinctive medieval type melodies, but my favorite part of the song was towards the second half when they did this extended instrumental section where all the instruments were playing these different melodies, and it just transports you to a different place as you listen, so I enjoyed that part the most. Next is Storm Carrier featuring Matthias Lillemans, otherwise known as the vocalist for Fintroll. I thought it was a cool song because what makes it unique, it had some harsher death metal style vocals, which I believe is from Matthias, but maybe I'm wrong. I feel the band is leaning into their folk metal style on this track, and I also like the fact I could hear more of their heavy metal style guitar playing. I thought it was a standout track. The combination of the typical power metal vocals and death growls really made it stand out, and it gave it a darker tone. We're about halfway through the album. Next song is called Starbath. I thought it was pretty cool. It was more of a mid-paced rocker, more of their heavy metal guitar playing, but also maintained the overall tone of the album as they stuck to their folk metal sound. Let me also say I like the production on this album. I was listening to it with headphones and trying to pay attention to all the different things happening in the background, and if you listen closely, you can hear different sounds that are mixed very low, but I also like you can pick out different instruments like the guitar, the violins, the bass, and hear everything clearly. On These Haunted Shores was the next song. I like the opening guitar riff. It was another one that was a little heavier. It just had a nice sound to it. They lean in a little bit to thrash metal or traditional heavy metal with some galloping guitars, so that's always nice to hear. You can tell it's an angry song. You can hear it in the vocals. It's accompanied by some keyboards. It adds a little suspense to the sound. But then the song shifts gears, goes into more of a melodic section, so it was a nice contrast. I like how they incorporated melodic guitars into the song and how they use different tempo changes, as I mentioned before with the first song. But before the song ends, they surprise you with this heavy breakdown and some of those death growls, so that was another nice touch. The Ghosting was next. This was a pretty cool. It sounded a little more like traditional heavy metal. It also had a darker sound. The bass guitar was very prominent in the verse section. I really enjoyed the guitar riff on this track, and they were both heavy and melodic. It was a slower song, but the darker tone made it stand out. Then in the second half of the song, they went into more of a folk metal direction. I also noticed that this band likes to include instrumental sections in the songs, and you can listen to them between the sections with the vocals, which tend to be more on the catchy and melodic side. There are 3 more songs left on the album. Next song is called Throes of Atonement. The song sounds like a typical folk metal song with these medieval melodies. It has some very melodic vocals and chugging guitars. I thought it was one of the more energetic tracks, as it also had more of those power metal style rapid fire drum beats. I found they were using lots of different styles. For example, the guitar solo sounded a lot like heavy metal from the 80s, but overall, the song sounded a lot like folk metal. The second to last song is called The Weeping. The song title makes me believe it's going to be a darker song, and that's what it is. It begins with these haunting soundscapes with these arpeggiated chords, followed by some heavier guitar riffs. I really like the darker tone on this. It almost reminded me of a Black Sabbath song from the 80s. It had that combination of darkness and 80s arena rock, if that makes any sense. It was a really cool song. It's a slower moving song. It's really dark and haunting. Not only that, but this band likes to add in these little intricate details, as I will call them. For example, there's one part where they play these tribal drums that go along with the violins and guitars. The song ends with cool, thick bass notes, and this might even be my favorite part, so I actually like this album a lot. Now, after 3 albums, 6 years, the trilogy comes to an end on the last song, which is called Reader of the Runes, Book 2. This is an 11-minute epic and brings everything to a close. So you know there's going to be a lot going on in this song. The song starts off with soft melodies that build up to more of a traditional power metal sound with fast drum beats and melodic vocals. After about 3.5 minutes, the song starts to get heavy. They incorporate some more thrashy guitar riffs and more of a darker sound. They also add in some isolated bass guitar, which is pretty cool. Like I said before, all the instruments have time to shine. The vocals get a little more aggressive at this part of the song. As the song progresses, they go through a couple more shifts. They change tempos a few times, so they keep you interested. It doesn't feel like a long song. There's a lot going on, lots of peaks and valleys. But then when you least expect it, about 7.5 minutes into it, they go full extreme metal with some super fast drum beats and a harsh scream and rapid fire melodic guitar melodies. Then the section transitions into more of a softer folk metal section. Afterwards, we get another heavier section with more of these rapid fire drum beats. Song ends with some bagpipes because it has to end somewhere, and that's where it ends. In conclusion, I liked it more than I thought I would. The album has a lot going on, not your typical power metal album. You can see they spent a lot of time thinking about the different things they want to add to the music. It goes in lots of different directions, but it remains cohesive. Doesn't really stray from the sound, but if you pay attention, you can hear different influences coming in and out of the songs, and for that reason, it kept me interested. So I'm going to give it a little higher score than I thought I would. I'm going to go with an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a pretty good album. I've listened to the first two, but I haven't really spent a lot of time with the entire trilogy, so I might need to go back and listen to all three albums in a row, but otherwise I liked it a lot. I also talked about Elvenking in my Discovering Metal series on Italy. I will link that. I'll put it over here. It's going to be right there. And that's all. Thanks for watching. Please give it a like. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe. And that's all. I will see you in the next one.